Jalen Brunson, yes, he's the best player on the New York Knicks, but the most important player is Karl-Anthony Towns when it comes to the Knicks trying to get to the promised land. He has to be dominant. And what we've seen over the last 2 games is that Karl-Anthony Towns has finally started to get featured in that offense.
San Antonio, NBA Finals, Game 2, Frostbank Center packed to the rafters. Every camera was locked onto Victor Wembanyama, the rising superstar many believe will define the next era of basketball. Every headline was about Wemby, the future face of the league. But while the spotlight was pointed one way, Karl-Anthony Towns was busy stealing the game on the other end. Before we jump in, if you enjoy NBA stories, playoff breakdowns, and deep dives into the league's biggest stars, make sure to subscribe and join the channel so you never miss a video. Towns finished that night with 21 points and 13 rebounds, becoming the first Knicks player since Dave DeBusschere in 1973 to record a 20-point double-double in a finals road game. That's not just a random stat, it's a connection to the last championship era New York ever experienced. The Knicks would eventually go on to hang banner number 3, and when people look back at that run, they'll realize this wasn't the beginning of the story, it was the payoff. To understand it, you have to go back more than a decade. Back in 2015, a 39-year-old Kevin Garnett returned to Minnesota for one reason: to help guide the franchise's newest cornerstone. The Timberwolves had just selected Karl-Anthony Towns with the first overall pick, and Garnett immediately saw something special. Most people noticed the obvious stuff: a 7-footer with guard skills, elite touch around the basket, 3-point range, ball handling ability, athleticism that didn't make sense for someone his size. KG saw something else. He kept talking about Towns' drive, his energy, and the competitive edge that couldn't be measured on a stat sheet. Garnett repeatedly told anyone willing to listen that Towns had qualities you simply couldn't teach. As a rookie, Towns looked like everything Minnesota hoped for. He won Rookie of the Year unanimously, receiving every first-place vote. That's usually the type of start that launches a superstar career without much resistance. But resistance came anyway. For years, critics found new labels for him: too soft, too emotional, empty stats, great numbers that didn't lead anywhere. No matter what he accomplished individually, the doubts never seemed to disappear. Meanwhile, Garnett never changed his tune. He called Towns the future. He compared parts of Towns' game and mentality to his own. He predicted greatness long before it became popular to do so. Every interview, every appearance, every chance he got, KG defended him. The endorsement couldn't have been louder. The strange part, almost nobody believed him, because here's what made the entire situation so strange. Kevin Garnett was supposed to say those things. He was the franchise legend, the mentor, the veteran who had taken Karl-Anthony Towns under his wing from day one. Most people didn't treat his praise as insight. They treated it as loyalty. The league basically shrugged and said, "Of course KG believes in him, that's his guy." Nobody took it seriously, and when Towns started putting up monster numbers, it didn't change the conversation. If anything, it made the criticism louder. Year after year, Towns stacked elite production: 25 points and 12 rebounds, 27 and 12, multiple seasons among the league's top scorers despite playing center. On paper, he looked like one of the NBA's best offensive players, but instead of earning more respect, people found new ways to dismiss him. The numbers were called empty, the wins weren't there, Minnesota wasn't a major market, the playoff success was limited. Suddenly, every achievement came with an excuse attached to it. The same stat lines that would have made other stars household names became evidence against him. For many fans and analysts, KG's constant support started to sound less like a prediction and more like wishful thinking. Over 8 seasons in Minnesota, Towns earned 4 All-Star appearances and established himself as one of the most gifted offensive big men in basketball. But the criticism never stopped. The Timberwolves won just 1 playoff series during that stretch, and every weakness in Towns' game became magnified. Defensive clips spread everywhere. Pick and roll breakdowns, missed rotations, tough possessions against smaller guards. The internet turned every mistake into a highlight reel. Then came the Rudy Gobert trade, and things became even more complicated. Minnesota gave up a massive package to bring in another center, forcing Towns to spend more time at power forward. The fit was awkward, the spacing wasn't ideal, and for the first time in his career, he looked like a secondary piece in his own franchise. franchise. Then Anthony Edwards exploded into superstardom. Suddenly, Edwards was the face of the Timberwolves. He got the headlines, the attention, and the spotlight. As Minnesota started making deeper playoff runs, the narrative around Towns hardened even further. Critics labeled him soft. They questioned his leadership. They questioned whether he could ever be the centerpiece of a winning team. Rankings began leaving him off entirely. His max contract became a target for debate shows and podcasts. The former #1 pick, who once looked destined for greatness, had somehow become one of the league's favorite punching bags. And then everything changed in September 2024. Minnesota traded him to New York for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a draft pick. The reaction across the basketball world was almost unanimous. Few people believed it would end the way it did. When the trade happened, the reaction was brutal. The Knicks had supposedly just taken on the most expensive second option in basketball. Critics argued that Madison Square Garden would expose every flaw in Karl-Anthony Towns' game. They said the pressure would be too much. They said New York belonged to Jalen Brunson and that Towns was simply there to support him. Every debate show had the same talking points. The contract was large, the defense would get targeted in the playoffs, the fit wouldn't work, no matter which analyst you listened to. The conclusion was usually the same. This move was gonna backfire sooner rather than later. What made it even more surprising was that even Kevin Garnett, who had defended Towns for years, couldn't completely convince people otherwise. KG openly criticized Minnesota for trading him and believed the Timberwolves should have moved Rudy Gobert instead. But even with Garnett backing his former protege, very few people were willing to believe that New York would unlock the best version of Towns. The league had already decided who he was, the labels were attached, the verdict seemed final. The moment Towns arrived in New York, though, the story started changing. His first season with the Knicks wasn't just successful, it was arguably the best year of his career. Towns averaged 24.4 points and 12.8 rebounds while shooting over 42% from three-point range. For a 7-footer, those numbers were absurd. He earned another All-Star selection and helped lead New York on a deep playoff run. The Knicks reached the Eastern Conference Finals, and suddenly all those takes about the trade looking terrible started getting a lot quieter. But the biggest difference wasn't the statistics, it was the role. For the first time in his NBA career, Towns didn't have to carry an entire franchise on his back. Brunson ran the offense. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges handled difficult defensive assignments on the perimeter. The Knicks built an environment that highlighted everything Towns did well. He could stretch the floor, punish mismatches, operate from the high post, and create space for everyone around him. Instead of being forced into the role of a franchise savior, he became the perfect co-star. Then came another major shift. During the summer of 2025, Mike Brown took over as head coach and immediately expanded Towns' responsibilities within the offense. The system featured dribble handoffs, creative pick-and-roll actions, and sets designed to run directly through him. On paper, his scoring dipped to 20.1 points per game, causing some people to claim he had taken a step backward. But anyone paying attention could see the opposite was true. His efficiency improved, his decision-making sharpened, and his impact on winning became even greater. For the first time, the game looked easy, and then Kevin Garnett went on national television and said something that made people start listening again. Then came the moment when people finally stopped dismissing Kevin Garnett's praise as mentor talk. KG went on national television and said it plainly. No exaggeration, no hype, no emotional defense of his former player. He looked into the camera and said that Karl-Anthony Towns was playing the best basketball of his life. He said the work was finally showing. He said the league was about to see everything he'd been talking about since 2015. For years, those comments would have been brushed aside. This time, people started paying attention. What nobody realized was just how right he was about to be. The Knicks had already put together a tremendous regular season, winning 53 games and looking more complete than they had in years. The offense was flowing, the chemistry was obvious, and Towns looked fully comfortable in his role. But regular season success only gets you so far. There were still questions hanging over New York. Could they defend at a championship level? Would Towns hold up against elite front courts? What would happen when playoff pressure hit Madison Square Garden and every possession suddenly mattered twice as much? Then the playoffs started and Karl-Anthony Towns stopped being a talking point. He became a nightmare. New York didn't just win games, they rolled through the postseason. The Knicks finished the playoffs with a stunning 16-3 record and closed out series by winning 9 straight road games. The advanced numbers painted an even crazier picture. Their playoff net rating ranked among the greatest championship runs ever recorded. Every round felt like another statement, and at the center of it all was Towns. His postseason plus-minus reached an absurd level, finishing as one of the highest marks ever recorded during a championship run. Every time he stepped on the floor, New York dominated. The offense opened up because of his shooting. Defenses stretched beyond their comfort zone. Driving lanes appeared for Brunson. Mismatches showed up everywhere. The impact was impossible to ignore. Then came the finals. In Game 2 on the road against San Antonio, Towns delivered 21 points and 13 rebounds. It wasn't just another strong performance. He became the first Knicks player since Dave DeBusschere in 1973 to record a 20-point double-double in a finals road game. That date matters. 1973 was also the last time New York won a championship. Even more impressive was the defensive side of the story. For years, critics had used defense as the biggest argument against Towns. Yet throughout the series, he consistently battled Victor Wembanyama, one of the most gifted young big men the league has ever seen. Instead of being overwhelmed, Towns held his ground. He used positioning, strength, and experience to make life difficult possession after possession. Then there was the playmaking. Operating from the high post, Towns became the offensive connector that held everything together. The passing, the reads, the patience. It all came together at exactly the right time. And then came Game 4 at Madison Square Garden. Down huge, crowd stunned, season hanging in the balance. You already know what happened next. The comeback ended up becoming the biggest in NBA Finals history. Madison Square Garden was shaking. Jalen Brunson launched a deep three with the game hanging in the balance, missed it, and for a split second it looked like New York's miracle rally might fall short. Then OG Anunoby came flying in, tipped the ball home, and gave the Knicks a stunning 107-106 lead. On the final possession, San Antonio couldn't find an answer. The last inbound sequence died in Stephon Castle's hands, and New York walked off the floor holding a commanding 3-1 series lead. Karl-Anthony Towns wasn't the headline that night. Foul trouble limited his minutes, and he spent much of the game watching from the bench. But even in just 26 minutes, he grabbed 10 rebounds and helped keep New York within striking distance before the comeback ever happened. Game 4 wasn't about one stat line. It was about everything he had contributed throughout the run. 2 nights later, the Knicks finished the job in San Antonio. Brunson exploded for 45 points, earned Finals MVP honors, and delivered New York its first championship in 53 years. As confetti fell and the celebration began, cameras quickly found Kevin Garnett. After more than a decade of defending Towns, KG finally got his moment. On live television, he simply said, I told y'all what he was." That was it. 11 years of debates, 11 years of people questioning whether Towns could ever be the player Garnett believed he could become. All of it wrapped up in one sentence. Because the qualities Garnett kept talking about were never easy to measure. The work ethic, the competitiveness, the drive to keep improving when the noise got loud. While everyone else focused on weaknesses, KG kept focusing on the traits that don't always show up in a box score. Before we finish, if you're enjoying these NBA deep dives and basketball stories, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. For years, the league judged Karl-Anthony Towns by playoff losses, defensive clips, and endless narratives. Garnett judged him differently. Back in 2015, he looked at a 19-year-old rookie and saw something special. Now that rookie is an NBA champion. Cat isn't the punchline anymore. He's a champion, a key piece of a title team, and proof that sometimes the people closest to greatness recognize it long before everyone else catches up.